What is this this capital gains tax thing that you've had as policy before anyway, Kelvin, in the Labour Party, and then you ditched it and now you're looking at it again. Would a capital gains tax, if you brought this in, would that also be on sale of businesses? Because it was last time.
We've said two things around the working group. That one is that we're not going to tax the family home. And secondly, we're not going to raise taxes. But let's look at tax because...
Can you answer my question? Can you answer my question? No, because my question is important, and we don't have many weeks to go.
We have to look at all the tax settings, and if we look at, there was a report in 2012 that said of 161 high-income New Zealanders with assets of over $50 million, 107 of them only said that their income was $70,000 or less. Now, we've got to sort out the whole tax system, and these guys have actually introduced 16 taxes in the time that they've been in government.
So what you're saying to me is that the tax system is skewed, it's not fair, and you're going to make big changes.
We've got to have a look at it, and that's what our working group is going to be doing. So, it's very important, because what we have now is an unlevel playing field where, like I say, 50 high-wealth New Zealanders with assets of over $50 million.
Are you going to target the rich?
But assets of over $50 million are claiming income of less than $70,000, and that's wrong.
Okay. The capital gains tax has been your policy since 2007. So you've had, at least 10 years to sort it out and tell us what it means for you. At the last election, if you remember, there was that whole moment of John Key against David Cunliffe and saying, right, what is the guts of the CGT? And they couldn't answer it.
Even out the tax,
and so here we are 3 years later, and you still can't answer the details of what a government under you looks like.
Kelvin, just let me jump in here. Because the Nats didn't tell us about putting GST up to 15%. So they didn't even tell us about that. Then they did that sneaky little thing in office when you actually lowered income tax but put up the GST. So you guys did that, Paula. So I've given her a whipping for that, and I want to ask you, what do you think should a proper capital gains tax should look like? Do you favour the one that you had a few years ago?
The working tax group, we've got to allow them to do their job, and we've said the two things that are off the table are capital gains on the family home, and we're not going to raise tax rates.
Okay, so all else is on. Okay, so all else is on the table.
Of course, these guys are going to say that. I mean, look at it, 41 to 43% in the polls. So
Kelvin,
of course they're going to be saying.
Kelvin, so everything else is on the table. So with a capital gains tax, a comprehensive capital gains tax, because that's what you need to make it work. Are you looking at businesses that sell? You get the capital gains tax on it.
Well, we can keep going down this track.
I know you're PR
I don't know what you should be responding.
The thing is that the working group will make that.
So you will not answer to the New Zealand public what your position on it is. You personally, you're the deputy leader.
Look, the position is that we're going to have this working tax group have a look at it, and
okay.
It's not good enough.
These guys have got to work
If you want to be
in
government, if you want to be running the country, you need to have answers for them. And the public deserve it.
Would you therefore, okay, let me change the question, would you therefore look at this capital gains tax, develop it, design it, and then put it in front of the country at the following election? Or would you just slip it in the middle of this term?
Well, look, I can't answer that question, but we're going to have a working tax group that are going to make decisions. And,
what I'm trying to ask you, this is really important. What I'm trying to ask is, would you design a capital gains tax in the next 3 years if you're in office and then slip it in without putting it in front of the country?
My understanding is that we'll campaign it in the next election.
Oh, you would put it in front of the country?
But look,
can I get that? It's really important. Sorry, I've thought about this for a week or so now. I want to get an answer. Would you put it in front of the country, or would you slip it into the tax system?
Look, I'm not going to answer that question.
Why not?
Look, because right now I don't know. We've got to have the tax working group make their decisions, and we'll come to the country with whatever they produce.
This is the problem, I've got to say, Duncan. So,
I'm confused.
Well, at the end of the day, I thought that Jacinda Ardern did quite well last night. I thought it was, obviously, I think Bill won, but I did think she put in a strong performance. It's the team behind her that you've got to look at now.
Okay, well, your team, Paula.
Yep.
On the day of the debate, your government announces $27 million to help build 80 units for some of New Zealand's most vulnerable people, which is the Auckland City Mission.
Yeah.
You guys took too long to get to this point.
No, we've been working with the City Mission, actually, and I had been as well for about 2 years. So it's more been them getting the plans that they wanted. They were really, I mean, it's their project, that one. We're merely putting funding into it because that is their project.
Where's your project for the homeless?
We've had a whole lot of projects for the homeless. As you know, we're the ones that started started housing first. We're the ones that have put more than $300 million
3 weeks before the
into that
election.
emergency housing over the last 2 years. We've been doing a whole lot in that space. We've got the whole social housing stuff that's been redone. So that $27 million for the city mission, I reckon, makes a huge difference. But they have been redesigning their whole building. It's actually $78 million over 25 years.
I see that.
25 years.
It is fantastic.
And it's them that we're ready for it.
It is fantastic. But what, they still have to raise $40 million.
Yeah, well, and we're paying the rent on those apartments or those units for the next 25 years, so we've signed them up.
Do you agree that there are more homeless now than there were when you took office?
Well, it's just a whole different sort of means of it. So it depends if you're talking chronic homeless through to those that have
Do you agree that there are more homeless?
I think there are.
Why?
In some respects.
Why?
Because we have got a demand and supply. So we came out of the GFC really kind of quickly, better than most projected. New Zealanders decided they wanted to come back to New Zealand and stay here. And so as a consequence, we've had more people in this country pretty much in a really short period of time. And that has put pressure on the housing market. There's no two ways about it.
And you didn't build quick enough, did you? And I think you've accepted that too, haven't you?
And it's those that are at the bottom end that feel the effects of it. But no one expected us to come out of the GFC so quickly and for the rest of the world to really suffer the effects of terrorism like they did, which meant that New Zealand became a really safe place. People wanted to be here, stay here, and move here.
No,
and as a
you brought all the immigrants in as well. You
and as
brought
a
the immigrants
consequence of that growth, we have seen pressure. But it is growth that we can actually really, really do something about, and it's a positive story.
So Jacinta said last night in the debate that babies and children living in cars, sleeping in cars, it will stop under the Labour Party. How do you do it?
Overnight.
How do you do it?
Build more houses. I mean, and we've got our Kiwi Build policy for affordable homes. We've got to tax speculators. Make sure that they're not gulping down the houses and leaving New Zealanders out of it. So
what was that?
They're speculators who are buying up houses and excluding New Zealanders from housing. There's a lot to be done, and these guys have left a big problem for us to fix up.
Right. How many houses will you build in Auckland in the first 3 years?
In the first 3 years, well, as we said, 100,000 across New Zealand over 10 years.
First 3 years.
Over 10 years, and 50,000 of them will be in Auckland. So, there's a lot of work to be done, as I've said.
But do you know how many will be built in Auckland in the first 3 years?
Well, there'd be around about 30,000 houses on average, wouldn't there?
I've said one.
30,000 houses in Auckland in the first 3 years?
No, 10,000 a year on average.
Do you know how many houses were built in Auckland this year?
No, I don't, sorry.
6,700.
Yeah.
And your leader got it wrong last night too. He said there were 10,000 houses built in Auckland.
I think
over the last year, we can't make numbers up.
No, I think it was more the building consent. So if he got that one slightly wrong, then he might have. Yeah. I haven't seen that stat, if you like. But actually, Labour have been saying it's 1,000 a year that they're going to build in Auckland over the next 3. No, they have.
Houses.
Yeah, and we're already doing 2,000 a year. So that's already in there.
Oh, this is exciting, isn't it? It's all on, isn't it?
It is all on. You've got to say. At least it's not boring.
Oh, sure. No, this is great. My one last thing to you, Kelvin. I'll go back to something I came up with a bit earlier. Could a capital gains tax be passed into law in your first term?
Look, I doubt it, but I don't know, Duncan. That's what I'm saying. The working group has to work these things out, and we'll move on their recommendations.
OK, we'll leave it there, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Paula Bennett and Kelvin Davis.